Welcome to Stagecoach Podcast. We have a great guest today. I'm so excited about this interview. We have Ken Farmer with us, and I tell you, this guy has a lifetime of creativity. He's a writer, he's been an actor, a screenwriter. My gosh, he's a former Marine with expert knowledge in firearms. He Let's see, horseback rider. Yeah.
Ain't no such thing as a former Marine.
Oh,
You're inactive. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
thank you for correcting me on that. Let's see. I read that you have participated in rodeos and ran a cattle ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, his resume of movies is incredible. And I looked through the list, and I think I have seen almost every single one of these. But the ones that stand out, of course, are, Rockabilly Baby, because you not only directed and co-wrote that, but also appeared in that one. And then Friday Night Lights, alongside Billy Bob Thornton and Lucas Black, who I love.
Lucas Black and I joked that we were the only two guys on the set that could actually understand one another. He was from Alabama, and both of us, have very heavy accents, and we just laughed. Said, we just look, we know what each other say. I know what he's saying. Yeah.
And Tim McGraw was in that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took one of my acting students came up to visit. Her name was Tanya Swan, and beautiful long strawberry natural blonde hair. And Faith was there on set one evening, and I took Tanya over and introduced her to Faith, and Faith said, "I have been looking at your hair. It's so, what do you do with it?" She said, "Shampoo." And they both have 3 girls. So I said, "Y'all are going to talk girls. I'm out here. Enjoy yourselves." So I left them there chatting with each other about their 3 girls that they both had, and hair. Women always want to talk about hair.
Well, and then you've also been in Silverado, Deputy Kyle, and that was alongside Kevin Kline and Kevin Costner.
Right.
Yeah. And let's see, Uncommon Valor.
With Gene Hackman. Right.
Gene Hackman.
Yeah, he and I got along famously. He's a Marine, and everybody had told me ahead of time, "You're not going to get along with Hackman. He's a bit of a horse's rear." And I said, "No, he's a Marine." And we got on great. I had just watched Bite the Bullet, Western that he did with Candice Bergen, and I can't remember who all was. Anyway, I said, "Gene, you have a good seat," meaning you ride well. When horsemen say he has a good seat, he said, "Kenny, I never rode at all before that movie. Ben Johnson taught me," because Ben was in the movie too. He said, "Ben taught me." And I said, "Well, my God," I said, "you might as well have God teach you if Ben Johnson taught you to ride." And I've known Ben for 30 years. And he has taught so many Hollywood stars how to ride. He said the best he ever taught was Wild Bill Elliott. He said, but some of them just do not have takes rhythm. When I teach people how to ride, I said, it's like dancing. You got to have rhythm. I tried to teach Danny Glover, and bless his heart, he has just no. I said, "Danny, you're black. You're supposed to have rhythm." He said, "I can't dance either." I said, okay, enough said.
Well, also you were in Rocket Man and the Newton Boys.
Yeah. Yeah, Newton Boys was fun. I played Texas Ranger Frank Hamer. Well, everybody says that he was a Texas Ranger when he was in on the ambush of Bonnie and Clyde, but he was not a Ranger at that time. He was employed he was a highway patrolman, basically, for Texas Department of Public Safety. Even though they came over into Louisiana and ambushed Bonnie and Clyde with, I think there was about 8 or 9 of them. And I don't know if you've ever seen the picture of the car, Bonnie and Clyde's car. It was perforated, holes all in it. It was just south, about 50 miles south of the Louisiana line, between Louisiana and Arkansas. And about, my grandparents lived 17 miles north of the line. And that's where I spent every summer of my life till I was about 17 at my grandparents' house. They didn't have electricity till I was 15 years old.
So tell us a little more about your, growing up years and how you got into your career.
Well, that's a little bit of a discombobulated story, but I will say that, like I say, grew up every summer of my life. My daddy drilled and pushed tools for Shell Oil. So I went to 21 grade schools in 7 states. I learned to adjust. I was always the new kid. And Daddy always told me, of course, the new kids always get the bullies. They got to come, well, we got to show him, who's boss around here. And so it was always, whenever the new kid came in, here come the bullies. And Daddy had just always told me, said, son, don't ever let anyone put their hands on you. If they do, you hit them as hard as you possibly can, right in the middle of the face. It works. They won't bother you anymore. And, but they always took my brother and I to Grandma and Grandpa's, which is south of El Dorado, Arkansas, out in the woods, about 7 miles north of the Louisiana line. And that is what I based my best-selling series, Three Creeks, series of 9 novels that I have written, of which number 9 was just released, Foot and Hutch. And even though I fictionalized the stories, but it's the only 9 books that I have written that I wrote in first person. All the rest of my novels are in third person omni. But I sat down and I started writing. I wanted to tell this through the eyes, starts out as an 8-year-old boy, which is basically me. But they're murder mysteries, and everything happened in these books except the murders. That came from my little pea brain up here. But basically it was my growing up, and right now they're up to about age 12. And Foot becomes best friends with a little colored boy, his same age, who lived down the road a little bit. His grandmother washed clothes for my grandmother. But his grandmother was descended from the slaves that my great-great-grandfather owned on this land. And when the emancipation came through and they became manumitted, great-great-grandpa gave them all 5 acres so that they could sharecrop and earn a living. And the biggest part of them didn't leave because they had the land. They could raise crops and sell it and work, and they just stayed. And Mamie, like I say, came up and was grandma's washerwoman, as they say, because back in those days you had to, had a big wash pot outside and you built a fire underneath it, and you boiled the clothes. And she would come up once a week and do grandma's clothes. And so I created that she had a grandson whose mom and daddy were killed in a car crash. And this all takes place in the late 40s, which is, I was born in 1941, and these stories take place in 48, 49, 50, 51, and so on. But anyway, I look outside one day, and Mamie's doing the laundry on my character, which is, his name is Foot Lee, and my ancestors are the Virginia Lees. Goes back to my third great uncle was Robert E. Lee, and his daddy was Richard Henry Lee, also known as Light Horse Harry, who was a hero in the Revolution. And also one of the, I have two others that were signers of the Declaration of Independence. And my character is named after one, and Henry Lightfoot Lee, who was one of the signers. And but his daddy shortened it to just Foot when he was young. I don't know why, he just did, and it stuck. And so his name is Foot Lee, and he's the protagonist and the narrator through all the books. Now, they are first person when he is in the scene. If he is not in the scene, then it becomes third omni. And that's a little trick. I found out that a little known author by the name of Dickens wrote that way. I said, well, I guess I'm keeping good company. And but he tells everything through his eyes in the story, and they are dramatic, humorous, pathos. You'll cry, you'll laugh. And I have been told by numerous reviewers, and I don't mean just standard, I'm talking about regular major reviewers, top 500 reviewers for Amazon, Vine Voice, that it is as good as, in their opinion, of a movie or in a novel entitled To Kill a Mockingbird. And one of my reviewers, a director, novelist, and playwright, and lives in Malibu, said that that the book Three Creeks was a seminal master class in writing. I said, ooh, I heard that. So anyway, that's a series that I did, and I just released Foot and Hutch, Hutch is the colored boy's name. And so if you want to count them kind of like they become kind of like Hardy Boys or whatever, they're always getting involved in murders and solve them.
Fun. And that's the book that was just recently published through Dusty Saddles Publishing.
Right.
And is available on Amazon. So that'll be
in Kindle and print. They are I call them Southern Noir mysteries. Now, a lot of people say, Southern what? I said, well, it looks like Noir, but it's properly pronounced Noir. It's one of the French words. But anyway, I really enjoy writing that. But Southern noir mysteries don't have really, and I was surprised at this, don't really have the as large an audience as Westerns. But I have a cadre of both. I have people who, when you going to come with the next Three Creeks novel? And then I got a whole another bunch that, well, when's the next Western coming out? I'm working on them. Okay. So I would have been working on two at the same time as I was writing Toby Man, the book 3 of the Coal Train series, classic Western, and book 9, Foot and Hutch, of the Southern Noir Mystery series. Just they're different genre and different styles, so it's easy to write a chapter on one, then go write a chapter on the other.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you get your inspiration for your stories, as far as you when you started writing. And
she's right here. You see her? What? Oh, they can't. Oh, she can't. She says she can't. You can't see her. My muse. I can see something. I can see a picture, and all of a sudden that picture becomes a story. And I was in the process of writing Lady Law, for example, which they're chasing a renegade Cherokee killer through the Oklahoma Territory. Now there's the Oklahoma Nation, which is on the eastern half of Oklahoma now, which is called Oklahoma today, which is from the word Oklahoma comes from two Choctaw words, meaning red man or red people. Okay. And so, but the western part of the Oklahoma Territory is called the Territory, Oklahoma Territory. The eastern was called the Nations, which is the title of the first Western that I wrote. It's called The Nations. But anyway, she has to chase this Cherokee killer into the territory, and they go through called the Wichita Mountains, which are beautiful. I've been there. And so I used that as a setting, and I saw a picture of some of the canyons and stuff when I was writing, and that gave me the inspiration, seeing this picture, of one of the books that I released, I guess it's been a year ago, called Red Canyon. And so that picture of that canyon, a very narrow, vertical-sided, steep canyon out in red sandstone, just caused all of a sudden the story starts falling into place. I had mentioned to you about the improv exercise of who, what, where, when, why. Okay, so I said, all right, I want to write two of my protagonists that I use in Westerns are Bone and Lorraine, which is a little sci-fi because they accidentally got transported from the year 2014 to 1898 through a ancient American Indian portal. That happens in my novel Steel Dust. Now, if you don't know, steel dust is the color of a horse. Just think of what if you ground steel down into dust, that color. And we have a horse that if they're that color, you call them steel dust. So anyway, I got in chapter 3 of that book, they are in a cave, which he had, they're both cops from 2014 in a small Texas town. He's a detective and she's an inspector, and they're partners. Well, he's a big old horse of a man, 6'8", 285, and she is a very small 5'3" Hispanic girl, but rather well endowed. as he refers to her sometimes. Yeah, old Double D over there, and she whacks him, of course. And but anyway, they are. Let's compare them to Nick and Nora Charles, the Thin Man series. Okay, if you remember it. Anyway, that they have a ongoing honeymooner style interaction that constantly jab at each other, you know, but they work together and eventually get married. But in this particular book, they are already married. Bone had taken Lorraine out to fish. She had never been fishing in her life. And he takes her out to fish at a lake that's west of Dallas-Fort Worth area called Possum Kingdom, which is actually the Brazos River, which was dammed up in 1931. But in 1898, it's the Brazos Valley. And but when they go in 2014, it's this huge lake, 400 feet deep. I've scuba dived in that sucker, clear as a bell, but there's caves and all. There's catfish in there that could swallow you. They are huge. But anyway, so they go there, and when they pull up there, and he's restoring a 1971 Thing, the Volkswagen. They look like a box of crackers. Mm-hmm. And but it doesn't have a top yet. He hadn't put the rag top on. And they pull up out there and unloading their stuff. And she looks up and looks across the lake, and there's this cloud coming. And she said, Bone, what's that? He says, uh-oh, that's a wall cloud. We got to get some shelter, pard. No top. He said, there's a cave up on that hill. We'll go up there and get in because there's a storm coming. And they clamber up the side of the hill and go in the cave just as the raindrops start falling. And just inside the cave are petroglyphs. Indian shooting an arrow, a buffalo, and here's the kicker, a counterclockwise spiral. You've seen all over that many people believe is the ancient Native American symbol for a portal to other worlds and other dimensions. And, according to Einstein, in the special theory of relativity, the past, present, and future all exist at the same time, as believed by the Native Americans. But anyway, lightning hits the hill. And this spiral is usually indicative of an electromagnetic vortex, in which, according to Einstein's theory, that's where a portal would be. And they're all over the world, these portals. And, she's, well, it's a good thing we come in, their skin's tingling. And storm passes, and they go back outside, and he says, where's my thing? And she says, I beg your pardon? He says, thing, the car. He's, yeah. She says, but that's not the problem. So where's the lake? And the lake is gone. And she says, where are we? He says, pard, I think the word would be, when are we? Come to find out that they are back in time. And in 2014, they had helped to get rid of some bad guys that were pestering a very diminutive little woman who owned a section of land in Cook County. Some guys, oil company, wanted to come in and drill for gas. and she didn't want them on the property, and they were going to burn her out and so on, So anyway, Bone takes care of them, and then find out that she is a stranded alien. In 1897, 1897, a spacecraft crashed at Aurora, Texas. There is a plaque at the cemetery this day, put there by the state of Texas. They buried the pilot in the newspaper article saying he was not of this world. And I have seen pictures of the tombstone that they put, and they had taken a piece of sandstone and carved a triangular craft on it and wrote the words, "Not of this world." And the interesting thing is, Aurora happens to be on the same parallel as Roswell.
Interesting.
Also on the same parallel as the White Mountains in Arizona, where that guy was abducted, which they made a movie on. And so it's like, also the same 34th parallel goes through the Bermuda Triangle. But anyway, I wrote in my story that there was a survivor, the mate to the pilot, and she is of the race of the Anunnaki, which is written by the Sumerians as their sky gods, and they gave them the name of Anunnaki. And so she, as which her planet is 100 light years across our galaxy, and they come through wormholes and have been coming for thousands of years. And so she has to send a radio message back to her planet of Tyron, which has to go by the speed of light. So it takes 100 years for it to get there. So she does get rescued in 2014, but in 1898, she is in Texas. And a family adopted her as a mute, abandoned child because she looks just exactly like we do, or maybe the other way around, except she's small. And so they go up to where they knew that her ranch was, and yes, she is there with the people who adopted her. And this is all in steel dust, and so they kind of like it there. They kind of like it back in the old West. And they have their own weapons with them, which he carried a Smith & Wesson 500, which is a 50 caliber handgun, the largest handgun in the world. Sounds like a damn cannon. And she is an expert with a 1911A semi-automatic. And the people I patterned these two characters after, Bone, there was an actual cop that I knew named Bone, who was 6'8", 285, and a consummate practical joker. So my character is a consummate practical joker, which gives me a lot of leeway for humor in the stories. And like I say, they kind of scrap one. She might say, "Bone, you're all heart." That at least the part that's not taken up by your butt. But anyway, they get along, and they have to chase. They join up with Fiona, and in some episodes, but in Red Canyon, they're tasked by Deputy United States Marshal Jack McGann, who's down with the Lumbago, and he was Bass Reeves' partner for a number of years, but he's now stationed in Ardmore, which is the Arbuckle Mountains up in the Chickasaw Nation. But he's down with the Lumbagos, so he calls on them to go after 2 train robbers. And when Bone gets the telegram, he says, "Well, we got a little work to do, Pard." He said, "We got to go after a couple of train robbers up in the Oklahoma territory." She says, "Who are they?" He says, "Oh, some guy's named Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid." "You're kidding me." "Nope, we're going after Butch and Sundance." So, Lord, I can smell it coming. And so anyway, that whole episode, when I envisioned that canyon, the Who, Bone and Lorraine, what? They have been tasked to track down Butch and Sundance. Who, what, where? Up in the Oklahoma Territory in the Wichita Mountains. What? When? 1898. Who, what, where, when, why? Because they're law officers. And this is what they do. And so now that I have the who, what, where, when, why, it just gushes out. I improv the story. I have no idea what they're going to do or say. Is that I become each character as I write. I become Bone. I become Lorraine. I become Butch, Sundance, and all the other characters. I become each of them. So I write each character the way I would play them as an actor.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense.
And so, but I let the characters tell me the story. And sometimes they surprise the hell out of me. Sometimes I have no clue what they're going to do. All of the time. I never know how a story's going to end. And I would tell you the ending to this, but that would ruin it. So my suggestion is read the damn book, but that's the way all of my books seem to come, is that I see an image. And the first thing I do is I'll come up with a title and a cover. And that infuses my vision, that movie that I create in my head. And then I write down everything they say and do. Mm-hmm. And so by doing it that way, it sucks the reader into the story. At least that's what they all tell me. But I don't think about stuff like that. Even though I do have a degree in theater, and basically, which involves, storytelling. And I don't have a clue on, when I write, I do not think about first act, second act, third act, story arc, character arcs, plot points. I don't think about that. But when I finish it, they're all there. I cut my teeth writing screenplays. So my style is like a screenplay. Usually more than one protagonist. I like a lot of interplay between, like I use Bone and Lorraine, and in which they may join up, which they are doing in Toby Man. They join up with Alice and John Eagle, who is she's the daughter of Coltrane, and he's been shot and he's still recuperating. And she's 16 years old, which is a good character. She was in the previous book. This is the third one. And it was called Long Gone, and it was the #1 bestseller, as was Coltrane. And her companion, John Eagle, he thought he was Comanche, but actually his he knew his mother was white, and she had been captured much the same as Parker was, you know, as that by the chief, and he adopted her child. But she was 3 months pregnant when they rescued her from a bunch of Kiowa who had killed her husband and so on. But he didn't know all of that. So he finds out later that he is all white, but raised by the Comanche. And so anyway, there are two other characters, and then two sub characters are a wolf dog named Bear Dog. He's half wolf and half dog, and he's coal black with blue eyes. And in the previous book, in Long Gone, Alice rescues a baby mountain lion.
Wow.
Who is white, not albino. But there's a term, and I put it in there, of what they are, that they're very rare, but they do happen. Very like a black one is very rare, but it's a white mountain lion, and she raises it from a nursing kitten. The bad guys killed her mother, or killed the cub's mother. It's a male cub, and so, but she is letting Bear Dog train him, and they grow up together. And so now they are being in their sub characters in my novel, in the one Toby Man that I'm writing now.
Okay. And when do you think Toby Man will be ready to hit the market?
Well, I'm on chapter 10 right now, so probably July sometime.
Okay.
I wrote and released 6 novels last year. So I turn out one every 2 months or so. The old time cowboys are getting few and far between anymore. I was doing a signing with my partner in Hyco, Texas, about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. It was National Day of the Cowboy, and they had invited a lot of us in. I know that I was there. Alex Cord was there. Robert Fuller was there. Dean Smith was there. And we, because Hyco is where Billy the Kid Museum is. And it's a very small little town west of Fort Worth. But there was a heck of a turnout there. And we had people lined up, but I'm sitting there at my table, and this lady comes up carrying a box, and she sets it on my table, and she says, "I have bought all your books. Will you sign them for me?" I looked, and yeah, every book, which was probably 25 books at that point. I said, "Well, sure." And so for the next 30 minutes, I'm signing the book she had already bought. I didn't charge her. I said, that's that big of a fan, I'm going to sign the damn books. I don't care where she got them.
Yeah, that's
I always know. And she and a friend, this lady, she had driven all the way from Shreveport, Louisiana to Hyco, Texas, which I guess about a 5-hour drive at least, maybe 6. And I live at Gainesville, which is about 4 hours from Shreveport, and she will drive up every year for my birthday and take me out to lunch.
Oh, that is so sweet.
And bring whatever books that I've released during the year, bring them up just for me to sign, So I said, sure, not a problem.
Tell us a little bit about your horse. I want to hear about Scooter.
Scooter the Gold. I bought his mama, well, I guess it's about 40 years ago. And she was a granddaughter of Hollywood Gold, out of a Big Joe Traveler, or by Big Joe Traveler out of a Hollywood Gold mare. And sent her off to be bred when she was like 4 to a own son of Doc Bar. And Doc's Gold Mine was his name. And I'm thinking, well, okay, I could, and he was a Palomino. And I said, well, okay, could get a Palomino out of it. And she was what we call copper sorrel, bright red with the blaze face and so on. And we got her bred and brought her back, and come time for her to deliver, it was 1st of March or thereabouts. And I assisted. I don't like mares to foal in a stall. So she's out in her little trap, and noticed out there she was laying down in labor, and I went out to make sure that there wasn't any problem, and I helped pull him out, and he was just almost exactly like her, a bright red copper sorrel, blaze face, 3 stockings, and a sock. That means in the business we call that a lot of chrome. And I raised him and broke him to ride, had him gelded because stallions are a pain in the butt to handle unless you're breeding them, and I didn't want to get into all that, so I had him gelded. And he with his background of cutting, I had sent him to school to be trained as a cutting horse, and but the trainer, cutting trainer, says he's a little too aggressive. That in cutting, they're not allowed to touch the steer, and he would, if they weren't doing what he wanted, he'd nip them. He was just a little too aggressive, but made a great pinning horse. And I went to God knows how many pinnings when I lived in California, all over. I got enough belt buckles to make a concho belt. And he became what I call my best friend. We were at a pinning in Temecula, California. We won it with 21.8 seconds, which is a pretty good time because you got to pin 3 steers out of, there's 30 head, and they all have sequential numbers, all 3 1s, 3 2s, 3 3s, 3 4s, and so on. And when you're halfway down the arena, you've got 2 partners, and the announcer will say your number is 4. That means you got to get all the 4s out of that herd, and only the 4s, and bring them up and put them in a pen. And if you don't do it in 30 seconds or less, you're out of the money. Well, we did. I got 2 at one time. We got them up there and pinned in, and 21.8 seconds. We won the deal. And but when we finished the run, I never rode him out of the arena. When we finished, I always got off and walked and looped the reins up around his saddle horn. That tells him, you're done, son. We're through for the day. And so I get off in the middle of the arena. I loop the reins around his saddle horn, and I just take off walking. And here he is behind me, just like a little puppy dog. As then we have to go out, and the regular parking lot was outside the gate, was for the customers. So all the entrance had to park down little lower place with their trailers and all that. And so we're walking through the parking lot. We passed this old cowboy, and he was heading into the arena, and he looked over at Scooter behind me and me walking, no lead rope, no nothing. He says, "Well, hell, does he fetch slippers too?" And I said, "No, but that is the thought. Son of a gun." And we laughed and went on. And then we get down to the trailer. I just tell him, "Get in, son." I loosened up his saddle, and he only rode on the left side. And I don't lead him in. I'd just get in, and he would get in, and I'd lift. It was a ramp gate on the end, and I'd lift it up and, give him a carrot for his treat and start up and head home. And I could always do that. I had Tim Holt's daughter, Brianna, came down, was visiting with some other people, and they came by the house, and they wanted to see Scooter and how a mare, Two-Eyed Tippy, who was by an own daughter of Two-Eyed Jack, the world leading sire of champions. And but she was ornery. She wasn't like him. He would go out of his way to please, but I said, well, she's just like a woman. She's got her own mind. She'll do whatever in the hell she wants. But they wanted to see my horses, so we walked out back, and I could talk to him like a person, and I would say, "Is she pretty?" And I would hand her a carrot. I said, "Ask him if he wants a carrot." She said, "Do you want a carrot?" He'd nod. So she's got to go and feed him a carrot. And I put him in the pasture at night and during the day, and then stall him at night. And I would just open the gate and go get in your stall, which was about 30 yards away in the barn. And he in there, go into his stall, look around, sit there and wait. Says, "Okay, I'm here. Where's my oats?" But now the mare, I had to lead, because if she wouldn't, "Hey, you open that gate, I'm running." She's going to go explore. But anyway, I would go in, and I'd lead her in, put her in her stall next to him, and then close their little stall doors and dump their oats in, and they're good for the night. But he was 30 years old, and he got a twisted gut.
Oh no!
And I had to put him down.
Oh. Tell us about your saddle.
Oh, that saddle. My wife had, it was my birthday. It was 1988. Lived in California. And we were friends with the people who owned the Bolin Saddle Company, which made all of the saddles for all of the movie stars. I would go Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and Tom Mix and all of the big silver saddles, stuff that which they all rode in the movies. I never did figure that out. And so she ordered me a saddle there. They tried to talk me into letting them put a bunch of silver on it. I says, don't want any silver. So wound up just the conchos and a nameplate across the back of the cantle. I designed the saddle, and their shield in the seat, right on top of the gullet. And they wanted me. I said, "Well, do you want us to pad the saddle?" I said, "No, I don't want no damn padded saddle. All the padding I need is on my butt." And but anyway, it was the last saddle made in Hollywood. They closed down for a while. They have since reopened an office in Dallas. But they don't make saddles. They now just deal in silver stuff. Yeah, Ben Johnson asked me where I got my saddle. I said, bowling. He said, figures.
Tell us a little bit about the commercials. I love this Wolf brand chili commercial. And
yeah. I quit counting commercials at 300. And I was the spokesman for Wolf brand chili, which y'all don't have in Nevada, I don't think. But it's the odd thing about it, it's the number one selling chili in the United States, and they only market in the South and Southwest. I'd asked one of the reps, I said, how come y'all don't spread market? He said, why? We're number one now. Why spend money and go into other markets? Good. But I was their spokesman for 8 years, and their tagline that I've had people come up on the street ask me to do the line, and it was, so neighbor, how long has it been since you had a big, thick steaming bowl of Wolf brand chili? Well, that's too long. He had one guy to record it so he could use it as his ringtone. I was the Lone Star beer cowboy for a while back in the 70s. I think I sent you a picture of writing that was in Playboy magazine, that picture. Now I had my clothes on, so did the horse. But he was Cutter Bill, world champion cutting horse. And I'm on him at a ranch up here in Gainesville. This was back in 72. Wow.
Well, that's quite an honor to say you've been in Playboy magazine also.
Yeah, that twice. I didn't send you this one, but they did one of just my face. Now, the one that I sent you was me on the horse, and we're, galloping across the pasture. And the other one was just my face, and I'm holding a can of Lone Star beer like this, And that was on 700 billboards.
Now, with all the books that you've written, and I understand that now you're with Dusty Saddles Publishing, did you self-publish for a while also?
I did. Even though I had my own publishing company, it just wasn't worth my time to publish I published maybe about 4 other people, but when my partner Buck Steinke and I did that movie that I wrote and directed, Rockabilly Baby, we formed an LLC, Timber Creek Productions. And when we had that, and then a buddy of mine from the Marine Corps called me from Pennsylvania, says, Kenny, I wrote a novel. Well, hell, good for you, John. He says, can you guys turn it into a screenplay? I said, well, yeah, send it down. Well, he sends down this 720-page novel, 350,000 words. And I called him. I said, John, we can do this, but you're not going to like it. What? I said, well, a screenplay is about 25,000 words. Your novel's 350,000 words. Do the math, son. I'm going to have to cut out stuff that you're in love with. That's okay. Okay, just do it. Okay. So we did it. Adapted it to a screenplay in about 12 weeks. Sent it back to him. And he said, what happened to the biker gang? I said, told you. So, well, okay. So anyway, and I understand it's still making the rounds at Disney. It was pretty good. It was a good novel. It was just a little long in the tooth. So and the screenplay, but when we finished, Buck and I looked at each other and says, hell, we can write a novel. if we can, because we had done one of our novels was The Nations, which was from a screenplay I had co-written in 88. So if we can adapt a screenplay to a novel, let's just write a novel. So we wrote a military action. Now, he was a retired pilot from Delta Airlines and also was a fighter pilot in Air Force. And I had flown in helicopters in the Marine Corps. So we decided we'll do a military book. And we did. We created a group called the Black Eagle Force. And the first book was Eye of the Storm. And it won a bunch of awards. We said, "Hell, this is fun." So then we adapted The Nations from the screenplay to a novel. And then we wrote another military. And then we wrote another Western, which was Sacred Mountain. And we wound up writing about 8 military novels. And we have a nice cadre of fans there. Then Buck, yeah, I guess, I don't know. I don't think he burned out on it. He just didn't have time because he also owned a gun store. And right during that particular time, the market just picked up and everybody was buying guns and ammo. Well, okay. So I wrote the first book I wrote by myself was called Hellhole. And it was a Bass Reeves novel where they had to, they were tasked to go up to Catoosa, Oklahoma, which was known actually as the Hellhole back in those days. And Judge Parker said, "We got to go up and clean it out." And Bass says, "Well, why don't you send the Army up there?" He said, "Posse Comitatus." And Bass says, "Do what?" "Posse Comitatus." That's the act in 1876 that says the federal government cannot use troops for a civil matter. It's called the Posse Comitatus Act. And said, "Oh, okay." So he says, "Y'all are elected." So Bass and Jack McGann, he shows up in actually in Toby Man. He's the one that has lumbago. He's kind of retired. He's still marshaling, but getting a little long in the tooth and a little down it with the lumbago. So he tasked Bone and Lorraine. But anyway, so we wrote that, and then I had wrote that one, Hellhole, by myself, and then I just kept going. And so at age 69, I started writing novels. I turned 82 this month. And I ain't slowed down yet. You asked about which book to read. Read my Three Creeks book. You know, as that is me. That first book that I wrote in complete 336 pages in 21 days. It just gushed out. And one draft. Boom, it was ready. It just came. I said, how do you do that? They couldn't keep up with me. And it won 2 best awards. And I was told I should have submitted it for a Pulitzer, but I was too late. I missed the cutoff. Okay. Because they said it's better than To Kill a Mockingbird, as good as or better than To Kill a Mockingbird or For the Crawdads Sing. And it was just, I had people fall in love with Foot Lee. Well, Ginger, I want to tell you how much I have enjoyed this little tete-a-tete that we've had, and allowing me to talk about my books, which is something I never do, and talk about my books and that they're coming and how much I love to write. I just like to tell stories. And what's that movie, Gypsy Rose Lee? Let me entertain you. Read my stories.
Right. Thank you, Ken.
I enjoyed it, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.